Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock, because you've got the Miller Boys. Where'd my controller go? Um, anyway, there it is. So you got the Miller Boys, in touch with the Miller Boys on your Wednesday evening talk show. We talk about all things impacting the African American community um, here in the local area of Fresno, but also on a larger scale. Um, as always, I'm joined by my brother, G. Douglas. Um, how's your week going, man? I haven't talked to you.
My week is it's all right. It's going. I'll be there in next week.
I mean, you playing catch up, so I feel you.
Always,
I
always.
feel you. As always, I'd encourage everybody to make sure you get your census done. Actually, from what I understand, the last day to get your census done supposedly is today. Although you still may be contacted by the canvassers or whatever they're called, people coming by, making phone calls or knocking on your doors, ensuring that you have completed your census information. Likewise, we are in the voting season. In certain states in the United States, people are already casting their votes. They've got absentee voting, vote by mail going on right now in I think it's 5 or 6, 7 states. It's already started. Here in California, you should expect to get your ballot in the mail next Monday. The week of October 5th, which is Monday, is when ballots are supposed to be sent out to California voters. So the information that you received over the last couple of weeks is just information. It does have the propositions in it. It does have all the candidates in it, but it's not your actual ballot. It's just information about the people who are running as well as the propositions that are on there. Mail your ballot in an envelope that looks similar to that next week, and then that's actually where you're going to be bubbling in your circles for your candidates and actually casting your vote. There's a couple of different events that are coming up also. As I get those, hopefully I'll have them next week. There is some ballot parties going on, some different events where ballots can be turned in to volunteers to be available to help you with casting your ballot or casting your vote and taking your ballots and getting it turned in for you. So in this election cycle, there is absolutely no reason for a person not to vote in California unless they just decide they don't want to vote. So that leads me into my first question. Gerald, did you watch any of the debate last night?
Yes, I did. I kind of had to listen to the middle part because I had some responsibilities, but I watched the first part and I watched the last part.
What's your response?
Woo! My response is pretty simple. I mean, Donald Trump is what he is. Everybody keeps saying he's this, he's that. No, Donald Trump is exactly what he says he is. I kind of made a more conscious effort to listen to Joe Biden a little more. I still think that it's crazy that we have two old white guys gonna tell us and dictate to us how we're gonna live for the next, 4, 8 years or whatever. And so I was kind of, at odds about that and my feelings with that and everything. And then somebody asked me last night after it was all over, what has Joe Biden done for us? And I was like, Joe Biden, what has Joe Biden done for us?
You mean as in black people?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I had to clarify in my own mind. But the thing about it is what could Joe Biden do for us? He has not been the president. He has not been, he was a senator, for 47 years. But you're one of 100 people, 101 people, I believe it is, if my math serves me right, to make laws, to change laws, to fight for, to do, to understand. But you don't have the direct impact. And so that, me, I look at things from the perspective of how people ask me, and then I turn it around. And the question actually is, what has Donald Trump done? Because everybody keeps saying what he has done. What has he done for African Americans? What has he done for us. And I reached long and hard. I couldn't find it.
Well, you know what the conservatives say, right? They gave all that. He gave all that money to HBCUs. He gave.
Okay, let me ask you this question.
There's like 3 or 4 things that they'll go through that he gave.
Okay, how much money did he give to HBCUs?
I don't know. It was millions of dollars.
The
couple
question
$100 million.
How come no one seems to know that figure when I ask them? Go ahead.
For me, it's not a matter of, that's the point. Donald Trump thinks that him giving to African American people and a monetary value is doing something for us. We could ascribe that same type of mentality to slave owners. Slave owners gave their slaves shelter. They gave their slaves food. They gave their slaves clothing, but they were still enslaved in bondage. So just because somebody gives you something, that doesn't mean that they have your best interest at hand. And that's the issue that I have when people start bringing that up. I mean, I haven't responded to anybody about it. I've tried to stay away from those types of debates and fights on, social media and those type of things. But that's the first thing that I think of, is that just because a person gives you something, that doesn't mean that they have your best interest at hand.
So the question becomes, okay, so because I like I said, I don't know if he's given monies to HBCUs or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
He has.
Okay. How has that turned a positive in your life? You're an African American male. How has that turned a positive in your life?
It has allowed some HBCUs to keep their lights on a little longer. It's allowed HBCUs to pay their professors a little bit longer. It hasn't fixed the issues, the subsidence or the core issues that still exist with HBCU colleges. It looks like it was $255 million.
$255 million to roughly 80 colleges?
It's like 102. So $255 million to 102 HBCUs.
We'll go with 102, but I'm sure it's been diminished because some of these colleges are no longer in existence.
Well, this was from January of this year.
Okay. Okay. So that's not a lot of, unless he's doing that every year, that's not a lot of money. That's nothing to brag about. So
Agreed.
for the folks that are saying he's done that, which equates to me as the string of things that people are going to say that he's done for African Americans, he ain't did anything, as far as I'm concerned. He did very, very little.
The other thing that they talk about is he did something with the, I want to say, was it the crime? No. There was some reform he did with crime, the crime bill that the Kardashian lady lobbied him to get done. Something with a crime bill or whatever. But people don't understand. Yeah, he's doing that, but that is only for federal crimes. And that has nothing to do with the state and local crimes that have affected more people of color than the federal side of it.
Well, I had read in passing somewhere that he did what he said he did last night when he said he took away the training. I don't know the exact words for it, but the race-based training.
It was a cultural sensitivity training.
Right, as it pertains to African Americans, white people or Caucasians, Europeans having to learn some of the traits, issues, lifestyle things about African Americans. And last night in the debate, he said that it was because it was a racist that is so absurd.
Agreed. Agreed with you 200%. So basically what he said, if you read into it, that it's okay for people of color to be discriminated against in historical types of topics and things, but when the people of color give you their perspective of a particular event, that then is racist to the white folks who have to listen to it. So when black people we talk negatively about American history of slavery, it's for us to sit there and tell that story and have a white person have to listen to it. It's that we are now discriminating or making the white person uncomfortable. And so it's the reverse racism story that people came up with, to get rid of affirmative action and those types of things.
So the opening topic question was, did I watch it? Yes. How did I feel about it? It was repugnant to understand that someone so anti me is in charge of this country and doing everything he can to tear the country down as quick as and dismantle it as fast as he can within the parameters of him being a monarch dictator from his king seat on high in the White House.
For me, there's two stories that goes along with the Trump presidency. 4 years ago, when he was getting elected, a lot of people were saying, especially my conservative friends, were saying he's not a politician. We need to stop having politicians running our country. We need to stop having politicians. And I didn't necessarily agree with that sentiment, but also I know that politicians haven't done everything the way that they should be doing. So I can understand that framework. But the other part about it is I think that it's a perfect example of you got to stay in your lane. Politicians need to deal with politics. Businessmen need to deal with business. And serving of people in a governmental faction is not a business. That's one of the issues that I believe we have with K-12 education now, is that K-12 education has become a business. It's a winner, it's a capitalistic type of setting in K-12 education where the kids are commodities, and kids are not commodities. And so, Donald Trump needs to go back to being the failed businessman that he has been in a long period of time, and he needs to stay out of politics. We need to get politicians, people who are versed in politics and the practices of politics, to serve this country, because this dude has been a horrible example, and he's doing damage on a regular basis. He embarrassed us last night on a world scale.
Agreed.
People were up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning all over the country wanting to see this presidential debate, and it was absolute, like you said, abhorrent embarrassment on a global scale. And now we as American people we're gonna have to recover from this. Did you hear? Let me ask you this one question that didn't get a whole bunch of press today, but I understand there was a report out that there was like 15 U.S. spies who were executed either today or yesterday in China. And the story is that the Chinese government were able to hack into our systems, discover who was in China, who were spies, and was able to track them down and kill them for espionage.
No, I haven't heard that.
And I haven't been able to read the report either. It was on a couple of the radio shows I listen to on a regular basis. So I want to read that story, because if that's the case, that means that shows you even how much more dangerous this dude is. If China is able to find out who our United States assets are in their particular countries, Russia's doing the same thing, Israel's doing the same thing, all these other places are doing the same thing, because China is going to probably share with them the technology about how they crack the code. Dude, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. But some of the best lessons I learned was caused me the worst headaches and left me with the biggest scars, literally and figuratively, that I've ever had. And so I think America is going through one of those learning situations now where we're going to be scarred immensely for a long period of time.
Well, how do you correct that?
I don't know if um, I don't know if you can necessarily correct it because it's always going to be in the back of your mind. You know, the history books that we have are going to talk about the Donald Trump 4 years. So you can't get away from it. So that's you know, like, you know, when you scar up your arm, I got this scar on my elbow now from sliding into second base when I was a junior in high school and got infected on my elbow. It, you know, it doesn't bother me anymore, but I have a scar on my arm for a lifetime. You know, when I had my knee surgery, I got a big old scar on my knee now. It doesn't bother me anymore, but I have a scar for a lifetime. And I think the Donald Trump is that scar on America that we will recover from it. You know, there might be some arthritis that develops in it, and it may be a little bit ugly and stuff, but we'll be able to recover from it. But that scar is always going to be there.
Yeah, so. I can buy that. The question is then, what was the cause of the scar? And if you don't figure out what the cause of the scar was and eradicate the cause of the scar, then you're subject to get another scar.
Right. I think Donald Trump is the manifestation of two things. It is the manifestation and rebirth of racism, racist and racism, white supremacy in America. It's always been here, but it has not had an opening to be able to foster and blossom. And I believe that Donald Trump provided that type of atmosphere. But the other part of it is that I don't believe that our elected officials on a federal scale, even in a local scale, have been doing what they haven't been about the business of serving people. They've been about the business of enriching themselves and, you know, making sure that they have a soft place to land when they're out of politics. And that's not what's
you say that about Obama also?
Yes and no.
Real big echo. There you go.
And I say yes and no because he was part of the structure, the Democratic, the liberal, I shouldn't say liberal, the moderate, the Democratic moderate towards the middle of the road structure. The one thing about it, though, is Obama was going to be wealthy regardless because he has that academic background. He can be writing books. He can be being on a lecture series. He can be doing all types of things. He's different than dump truck Trump that we got, and George W. whatever it was, George W. or whichever one of them, the son Bush that came after that he inherited that bad economy from. Them dudes is only in that position because of the color of their skin and the lineage in which they come from. Bad examples, horrible examples.
No, okay.
So to answer your question, I don't. Yes, Obama is going to benefit from what he did as a president, but I don't know how to equate how much the presidency helped him. Because of his intellect, his background, his preparation, he would have been fine doing whatever it was he was doing. The son George Bush was a failed businessman. He ran all these oil deals, oil companies and stuff into the ground when he was in Texas. Donald Trump now, his true colors his covers is being pulled back off of him. 6 bankruptcies. He's $400 million in debt or something like that, $500 million in debt. You know, that's not a good businessman, and they're getting exposed. Obama would never have been able to have been in the presidency. I know if I have one. I know I'm not giving you about Obama, but I'm not sure that I have one.
Okay.
I'd have to flesh it out more.
That would be the answer then. Yeah, I think the difference is that first of all, about the education, we have to realize and understand that everything that we do in this experiment called America is going to be ran through, where'd you go? Through the lens of a capitalistic society.
True. That's our DNA. You're all right. I had to move. I had to adjust the screen.
No. You're saying it's in the country's DNA?
Yes.
Okay, but it doesn't have to be. Like you said, it's one of the things that should not be in certain parts of our government. Being like education being one. Capitalism has no function. Well, it does, but it should not have in the education of kids.
Correct.
That should be probably the smoothest process that we see. But because we have a capitalistic society, everything has to run through capitalism. And I think the problem that we have is that the Republican following party, the people who follow the Republican Party, that's all they know. That's all they want to do. They want to grab, get as much as they want. And so that sets up an issue and a problem with everybody else's right or liberties for success. I don't believe we should swing one way too far in the other pendulum either of pure socialism. But you have to have a little bit of both in order to be able to function in this great experiment we call the United States of America. The thing that we cannot have is this petty racism, tribalism that is going on in the country now. It benefits no one.
KP, if you can hear me, you're gonna need to cut your mic off. I think that's where the feedback is coming from.
Well, it's coming from somewhere.
Anyway, so and they can hear it on Facebook because they're getting real bad on Facebook as well. But yeah, I agree. And the thing about it is as much as we, as the conservatives, want to holler and scream about, we're not a socialist country, we're not socialist, we're not so. That's an absolute lie. They benefit. The conservative side benefit from socialism 10 times what the liberal side of it does. Perfect example is, what was the tax cuts that Trump gave to, I don't know, was it a year ago, 2 years ago, something like that, 3 years ago?
I think 2 years ago.
When he gave those big tax breaks, big tax cuts.
Yeah.
He gave the people's money to a small group of folks. That's socialism. That's all socialism is that the government helps take care of its population. That's what socialism is. But when we look to help the poor, when we look to help the homeless, when we look to help the mentally disturbed, when we look to help people who are addicted to substances and things, now all of a sudden that we shouldn't help them. We should only give help and support to the wealthy. And that's where our society, our great experiment, as you call it, backfires, is that we don't, what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. And there'll be a reckoning at some point in time. I just don't know how. And I keep harping on this data. There are more under 40s Americans, more Americans under the age of 40 than over the age of 40 for the first time in the last 80 years. I think that is going to be a major motivating factor for what happens with our economy, what's happening with our government, what's happening with our educational system. So here's an article that I just read that I had a conversation about, I don't know, about a week ago or so. That has to do with fraternities and sororities. You know, fraternities and sororities have always been a huge thing for those of us who went to college. And we've all been involved in those social groups and stuff. There is this movement in the Midwest right now to disband Greek life on college campuses. So the students are calling for there to be no more Greek life on campus. And the reason that they're saying that is that some of the pillars and tenets of these fraternal and sororities, their organizations, are counterproductive to how they want to live. You know, you only can have men in fraternities. You can only have women in sororities. How do you deal with a person who is transgender? You can only have the lineages. People people come to fraternities because their moms and dads were part of a fraternity or sorority. They have legacies having them come in there. There's all types of things that goes on with that whole fraternal society, which is not okay with this upcoming group of young people who are large in numbers. And so I could full well see in the next 10 to 15 years, that there is no fraternities and sororities on college campuses across the country. And so it's things such as that I kind of pick up on as I have conversations and as I read things that I don't always have an answer for, but it's curious to me, especially since I'm part of a Greek-led organization with African-American men who are struggling in the college ranks, who our largest region is in the Midwest. So I'm interested to have some conversations with some of my brothers out of the Midwest who are working on these campuses to see if they're being inundated and bombarded with a lack of participation from young African-American men. So just something else to ponder.
Well, I don't see how that's an issue.
It's only an issue because it's different.
Okay.
It is a deviation from the way that the college campuses have worked for the better part of around 100 years. The Greek life, and they're saying that's in an article that I briefly read through, one of the issues why they believe that college life cannot be just automatically pulled out of or extracted or eliminated from college campuses is that there's so many, the college campuses and these fraternal organizations are entwined. Because if they take away Greek life on campuses, then probably the students are going to not, some students are not going to go to those campuses.
What would it look like? What would it look back like? What would the impact be if they eliminated fraternities and sororities off of college campuses?
I don't know.
Do you think that the organizations would continue off campus, off site?
I can tell you with inside of the African American configuration, it would definitely continue, because in Alpha Phi Alpha, which is my organization, about within the last 10 years, we now have more alumni members than we have college members. So it's just the opposite. We have more brothers in our organization who are out of college than we do that are in college for the first time, and that just happened in, like I said, in the last 10 years. So there's already some conversations about us getting out of the business of bringing or making new brothers in the college life and allowing them to come in through the alumni ranks, because now our alumni organizations are bringing in more brothers who have already got their college degrees, they're into their professions, they're into their family lives and those type of things. And that's where a bulk of our new members are coming from. So within inside of the African American fraternal and sorority structures, I think we'll be fine. But then you have to be connected from your origins, because all 9 of those organizations were founded on college campuses. That's where your origins is. That's your birth, is on these college campuses. So how do you make that transition to now you're no longer affiliated with college campuses? We say that we're the oldest African American organization created for college educated men.
Nothing changes. You still have a history and a legacy, unless you want to destroy it. So it would be the same. It would just be, this is the transitional period, the same as we're going through right now with trying to abolish racism out of the United States experiment. I don't see a problem with it. I don't. I think it will maintain and continue on pretty much the way it is and the way it goes now.
That's not true, Joe.
That's not true.
That's not true, because as I said, all of these 9 organizations, their foundings are all on college campuses.
Agreed.
And so
that'll never be changed.
Agreed. But if you're no longer making new members on college campuses, there is a huge trend. You have to break from your history, your origins, in order to move forward. And that's not easy. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's not going to be an easy transition. That's not going to be an easy transition at all. From the conversations I've heard with inside of my organization, that's not going to be an easy transition.
So because they've moved the organizations off of college campuses, and that's why I asked you that first. You are telling me that you feel that they're going to fail?
No, it's not a matter of. Well, alphas will always exist.
Okay.
Alpha Phi Alpha will always exist, but we're going to have. Okay, so here's another example. So when we went from having pledge lines in our organization, which where you became a new member through an individual chapter, so Fresno State, Cal State Bakersfield, an individual college campus, to where now we're doing it in clusters, you should have seen, there was a huge fight, and we're still adjusting. And it's been 10 years now. So we're adjusting to the new process, the new way that we're making our new members. It's been 10 years just with that process. Now you're talking about adjusting and changing 113 years of history and protocols and procedures, monuments that have been.
It sounds to me like you just don't want to give up that history and seal it in a book and put it on the shelf and move on with the new process.
Who does? Nobody wants to have their legacy just put into a box and put away, especially if it's a living legacy. Our organization is not history. Our organization is a live and thriving entity. Why would we want to put it in a book somewhere and put it on a shelf? We are still building a legacy. We're planning on being around here for our bicentennial celebration in 2000.
And like you just said, the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity will continue on in existence until it is no longer able to sustain.
Okay, so if you get a big push back from your brother, those alumni members that you have now, you get a huge pushback from them saying, I don't agree with not being on college campuses, and they cease to pay their annual memberships. They cease to support our regional and national conventions, which is where our budgets are built off of. They cease to give into our foundational organizations because of this reaction, because we didn't handle it very well. Then we have just killed ourselves. We're not going to have the financial resources that it's going to require for us to make a seamless transition. That's what I mean about it not being easy. It's real easy just to write things down, put it in a book, and put it on a shelf. But then it's on the shelf. It's no longer living and thriving. And so that's what I mean about the transition. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just know it's going to be tough because of my brothers. That we don't do change real well. Old black men are probably some of the most difficult human beings to adjust to change. And when you're talking about changing 113-year-old legacy, I just know it's not going to be an easy move. But it's something that we have to talk about. It's something we have to contemplate. And if we don't have these conversations, then we're dooming ourselves. And so I know that our new we just got a new president who will take over in January. And hopefully I can get on his calendar so that I can have this conversation with him about, maybe it may not happen under your tenure, but how do you help lay the framework, the groundwork for us to be able to make this transition?
Okay.
So and the reason why I went there is just I really, really, really do believe that our young people, those under 40 group, is going to be the main players and dictators in every aspect of life that we have going forward. Whether it's mobilizing and organizing and using their vote, whether it's mobilizing, organizing, changing organizations, eradicating racism, um, making a fusion between socialism and capitalism, whatever it may be. It's the young folks who are going to be the ones who are going to push and move that going forward. What's going to happen with that? I don't know. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to being part of that process.
Well, change is inevitable. Everything in the universe changes. We shed and change every day. New people every day, new slates, new everything. So change is going to happen. Someone's going to get sick of it and move in a different direction. The hard part of life is being able to deal with the change. And I mean, that's kind of the way it is. That's why you have people walking down the middle of the street now with you know, AR-15s because they don't want to, change. They don't want everybody to be inclusive in this society. They are, like you said, the younger people are becoming a voting age, and we have a society where votes count. Right now, they would like to lie and tell you that it's one man, one vote, but that's not true. But change is inevitable. It's the entity that doesn't adapt to change real well that finds themselves on the cutting room floor.
Let me ask you
in the books.
Let me ask you this question: what was the last major event in the United States that caused change?
Probably in the 60s, the civil rights bills and all of those things that are now being implemented to further women's rights and LGBTQ issues and all of those things. That was probably the biggest change that has come about that I can, just with a blind question out of the air, come up with right now.
I would say it was in 2008 with the election of Barack Obama. And the reason why I would say that is that our system, our country, our government, the United States of America, had always been led and headed by a white male in our society, which has always been seen as the dominating person. To have a white male be beat by a black male, I think was the last huge event in America that made us embellish change. And what was our reaction to that? Donald Trump. And so, that's just me.
Wait. You said what was our reaction to that?
Yeah, what was America
as a total? America.
Yeah, what was America's reaction to the 8 years of having Barack Obama, a black man, be in charge of this racist country? Because we had an opportunity to continue with the change, because we had an opportunity to have our first woman head of this country. Barack Obama beat two white men, John McCain and Mitt Romney. And then we had an opportunity to have our first woman. So we had an opportunity in America to have back-to-back examples of change in our leadership, a black male and a white woman. And what was America's reaction to a black man leading this country? Another white man who is not a politician, who is an absolute buffoon, that we all have examples and have seen that on display. That was America's reaction to change that was perpetrated on them.
So what you're saying is the reaction to the change that you're describing was an immediate by the people in power change to get it back to the way it was, because that's what they see as normalcy.
Right. But that ain't normal, and I think that we've got
it has been normal, because as what you said, we've had 43 presidents that were white. before we had Barack Obama. So he is the outlier. So what would the country do? They want to get back to normal. They want to get back to the lack of change. So they
And so,
forced in what they believed at all costs, what they perceive as being normal.
and what has been our react? What has been America's reaction to that forced change? Because I agree with you, but America has tried to get back.
Well, the reality of it is that we're right on the cusp. We're right on the edge because only by 3 million votes in the United States of America did Donald Trump lose the popular election. So, but he was put in by the Electoral College. So we're right there on the edge. It wasn't a blowout. It wasn't like, um, 39% one way versus, the 40-60 split. It was more like a 55-55 split. So the change is always going to be gradual. So the change is always going to take effect. It's not, wham. It's people are going out and voting, the people that can vote. And as a result of that, we see the cause and effect of that is because Barack Obama won, then they put in, they slandered Hillary Clinton, said all these things, true and false, about Hillary Clinton. The populace bought it, and then we get Donald Trump because because the Europeans, the Caucasian, the people in power, the power structure wants to have Donald Trump or someone like Donald Trump in power because that's what they're comfortable with.
Agreed. And that's why I'm so interested to find out the results of this next referendum on our desire, America's desire to change. That's what this next vote, that's what it is for me. It's going to be more evidence or an example of whether America really truly is ready to change, or are we going to resort back to where we were in Reconstruction or prior to Reconstruction?
Well, the question is, a vote is a vote, and so last time Donald Trump lost the popular vote. So to me, it's interesting to see how they're going to put things in place or in play to stop people from nullifying their votes, taking those privileges away on the sly.
It's already in progress.
That's what they've been
doing. That's what they've been doing with the discrediting and dismantling of what's going on with the U.S. Postal Service, which should be the #1 delivery system of votes, of ballots in this particular process where we are with this pandemic. And so they've tried to monkey around and deal with that. And it really it kind of backfired on them a little bit. So the other thing they got going on right now is they got all these lawsuits. Wisconsin's under a lawsuit, Florida, and I think it's Georgia. Maybe it's not North Carolina, but there's Pennsylvania. There's like 3 or 4 state lawsuits that are going on right now, which is interfering with early voting in those states. So say, I know in Pennsylvania, it was something like they were supposed to have gotten their ballots mailed out to them on September 1st. Oh no, it was in Wisconsin. Wisconsin was supposed to have gotten their ballots, say September 1st, and they sent out the ballots, and then somebody from the Green Party or the Peace and Freedom Party or some lesser party challenged it and said he should have been on the ballot because he met all the criterions to be on the ballot as a presidential candidate. And so they froze sending out or delayed sending out the ballots to the people in Wisconsin. So it's those types of BS little tricks that is being played, and it's not necessarily the voter disenfranchisement, taking people off the rolls. It's about now them using the legal system. Remember that's Trump's #1 accomplishment. He put all those federal judges all throughout the country, and now those federal judges are making determinations in these lawsuits about uh, when ballots should go out, how they're being collected, and all those type of things. And so that's the scary part, is that he has weaponized the judicial side of our government to favor what goes on with the conservatives, which is a smaller, which is the minority group in the United States. So I know that maybe my terminology of it being interesting is, to me, is probably not the best word to use or the best descriptor, but it is. I mean, it's got my interest, and that's why I'm trying to keep up with this, because I really do. This is a referendum, not just on Trump, but it's a referendum on, for me, it's a referendum on racism, sexism, homophobia, our institutional racism that we have, the institutions that still embrace and use racial types of situations. Prop 16 in California, which it undoes parts of affirmative action that was taken out back in the 80s. They're reinstituting some of those elements in there, equal protections, getting into colleges and loans and all those type of things. So I'm eyeball open, interested in this whole election cycle to see what the results are.
Okay.
So, hey, you sent, if you're ready to change subjects, you sent me a deal last week that we didn't get a chance to get to about, I guess it's the auditor, the city police auditor or whatever, who delayed sending out the report.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Because he feared what the reaction would be of the public.
Right.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Actually, I can't. I just thought that it was interesting because there's really nothing to explain. The greater part of Fresno has put in an auditor, and now the way I look at it is he didn't do his job because he is fearing for retribution or societal upheaval because of what was going on. His job is not to make those determinations. My point is, like you're saying about the judges, about the electorates, it's bigger than who we would like to see in there. You know, we have to be able to formulate strategies to deal with the things that are going on around us that affect us, and how they affect us and why they affect us. You know, we should, you know, who's to say it's right or wrong for him to do what he has done? Who makes the final decision on that?
I don't know, but I can tell you right now that what he did was wrong. Because anytime you withhold information because you're worried about the result, that's not your job as an auditor. Your job as an auditor is supposed to be impartial. You're supposed to take and gather as much information as you can and come out with a report that talks about the data that you were able to collect. And if you were seeking certain data, certain information that either wasn't given to you or you couldn't get to it, then you put that in the report also. I attempted to get this additional data, which I thought would have helped my report, but I wasn't able to get it for whatever reason. But here, from the data that I received, here is what I can report. It's not that arbiter's job to decide if I say this, it's going to cause a negative reaction in the community, so I'm not going to say this. That's not his job.
Right. I would equate that to what Daniel Cameron did in the Breonna Taylor debacle, fiasco, where he was in charge of the.
By the way,
huh?
They're gonna get him.
Oh yeah. Well, what was your first indication that they were going to get him?
Well, I have never heard of a grand juror after they get done request an opportunity to share what was actually done behind the curtain.
Right, because they usually want to stay silent, quiet.
Huh?
They want to stay silent and quiet and out of the public spotlight. But everybody knows what he did was wrong. So the question then becomes, why did he do what? First of all, what he did was wrong in the moral eyes of society, not by legal standards, because he did what he did by legal standards, and basically has gotten away with it. The same as the police that went in there and shot the boyfriend and were not held to any standards of charges for the murder of Breonna Taylor. So I don't. Yeah, what he did was fudged up, but I don't think he's gonna have any consequences for that.
Oh, that'll be another indicator. I'm looking forward to seeing this because, like I said, I have never. I do not know of another person who has been able to make a decision behind the Iron Curtain, who, when the decision is made, they come outside the curtain and want to tell their story. So that tells me that what Cameron did was not just effed up, it was illegal, it was immoral. And at least thank God there was one person that was there on the grand jury that has some ethics about them. Because what it looks like is that Cameron went in there and only shared evidence to support the outcome that he wanted.
Right.
And just like the auditor we talked about, if he did that, then that dude, if I'm not mistaken, that's a crime. Because basically he's falsifying, I don't know how it's not falsifying, but he's not giving accurate information to a grand jury.
It would be unethical. Now,
he would lose his job. He wouldn't be able to practice law anymore.
Who's gonna force him to lose his job?
Agreed, because I would have to go into bar, I believe. It's gonna be interesting. That's another one. It's another interesting case that's got to play out.
That's what I'm saying about the fine line of understanding and not understanding, because it all has to play out. It all has to play out. And where is the pendulum more weighted? We as African Americans in this society, are we, I don't want to say equal or equitable, do we have the same righteous provisions as everybody else in the society that we live in? That's what we're fighting for. So if we're fighting for something, then it's not. So yeah, I have to wait and see. I just have to wait and see. If you could put a person like Donald Trump and in the presidency, in the White House, let him lie and fool the public. As long as he has and done what he has, we'll see. We'll see what's going on. I just don't have any real faith or trust in our judicial system, because I know that the people in power have been in power, and they set the courts up to do what they want to do. The only thing that might get that young man in trouble in Kentucky is that he's a black man.
Right. Agreed.
And they might be using that for bait.
It looks like right now that he sold out for, 2 pennies of gold or 2 coins of gold, because he supposedly has promised. The scuttlebutt is that Trump wins second term. They have a conversation with Uncle Thomas on the Supreme Court now, tell him he got to get out the way. He retires, and they replace him with this Cameron dude as payoff for what he did in this particular situation. And so it's I'm glued to. I want to say glued to the TV screen because I don't watch a lot of TV, but the radio, the newspapers, I'm gonna read all of this stuff, keeping up with this, because that dude Cameron, I think and you see that he asked for a delay too, right? He was supposed to give that report back today, right? Was it today?
Today, and he went and formulated an injunction and so and filed his brief saying that he needed more time. We don't need no more time. You need to get your lie together. But
They
one
gave
thing
him
I did want to
2 days.
ask you this week.
He's got to
Go ahead.
report. He's got to give his findings. He's got to report his findings by Friday.
He has to open. Did the judge come back and say that?
Yep. The judge made a declaration on there that no, he was not giving him whatever time he asked for, but he will give him until this Friday to give whatever was his report, whatever was supposed to have been done.
To give his to give him a copy of the transcripts.
Mm-hmm.
So do you still think that the NBA did a wonderful thing?
I do.
Okay.
You mean as far as opening up their arenas and stuff?
Yeah.
Yes.
No. Not opening up their arenas. Going back to work.
That was your issue with them going back to work. I thought that they did a great thing by opening up their arenas, making them vote centers, as well as the NFL has done that. That was what I was saying. I wasn't really hung up on whether or not they go back to work or not. I just think that they did a great thing by, although in California it really doesn't make a difference, but I'm not sure what all the rules and regulations are about voting in the other states. But in some places, I'm sure that it would be helpful. In Ohio, I know it would be helpful. When I think it was Ohio, they changed the laws 4 years ago, that they were only going to have one drop box, one area for you to drop off your ballots in each county. And some of these, one county might have 200 people in it, and then them counties had the big cities, Cincinnati and Cleveland, have a couple million people in there. So that was inequitable. And so them being able to open an arena to provide additional space would have been a good thing.
Okay.
So anyway, we're up against it. It's 9 o'clock. What are your parting words for the evening?
You pulled us all that way, I pulled us all this way. Sooner or later, the tree got to fall.
Okay. All right. California, those of you who are in the audience in California, remember, please look for your ballot, your actual voting ballot in the mail sometime in the beginning part of next week. And remember, there are 3 ways for you to be able to turn that ballot back in. You can mail it, use the U.S. Postal Service. You do not need to put a stamp on it. Just make sure you sign the back of the ballot. So you can mail it. You can drop it off at one of the numerous drop centers that's available in every county in California. Again, it does not require you to have a stamp or anything. Make sure you sign the back of it. And then the last thing is you can take it in. So you can actually take your ballot into one of the vote centers. If you need to change, update, your ballot was destroyed in some way, got wet, coffee spilled on it or something like that, you can go get a replacement ballot from the vote center. So that would be the 3 ways that you can get your ballots turned in. Again, I'm encouraging everybody to vote in October. Don't wait until Election Day, November 3rd, to do the voting. And last thing, keep this in mind. If voting wasn't so important, the system wouldn't fight us so hard to take our right to vote away. So I'll just leave that right there. And we will see everybody next Wednesday, God willing, again here at 8 o'clock Wednesday evening. Oh, by the way, all of those who know our parents, please keep them in prayer as they're going through their health issues and those type of things. So please keep Harry and Bessie in your thoughts and in your prayers over the weekend.
And I'll put that out for everybody's parents, everybody who has a sick or ill parent or loved one. Let's have a prayer for everybody.
All right. We'll see everybody next week. Peace.
Enjoy.